a time before time. Have you ever wondered what was there before everything? Before people, before dinosaurs, even before stars or planets? Before the Earth, the Sun, and even time itself? Well, scientists believe that everything, the entire universe, started with something we call the Big Bang. Now, the Big Bang wasn't a bang like a firework or a crash. There was no sound, no air, and no one around to hear it. Instead, it was a sudden expansion, the very beginning of space, time, energy, and matter. Imagine the whole universe squished into something smaller than a grain of sand. No stars, no galaxies, no up or down. Just everything waiting to begin. And then, in an instant, space started expanding. Fast, really fast. So fast that it's hard for our brains to even picture it. It's like if you had a tiny balloon and it suddenly blew up into the size of a planet in less than a second. That moment when everything started is what we call the Big Bang. And from that teeny tiny point, the entire cosmos began. What happened during the Big Bang? So what really happened when the universe began? Let's imagine the very first moment. The universe was hotter than anything you can imagine. Way hotter than lava, hotter than the center of the sun, hotter than 1,000,000 ovens all turned on at once. It was a storm of energy. There were no atoms yet, just tiny particles buzzing and bouncing everywhere. Everything was packed tightly together, moving like crazy. There wasn't even light yet, just pure energy and heat. As the universe expanded, it began to cool down just a little bit. Not cold, just less hot. That's when the first tiny building blocks of matter started to appear. Quarks, electrons, and other weird little particles. These tiny particles would later come together to form protons and neutrons. And from there, we get atoms, the stuff that makes everything. But in those first seconds, the universe was still too wild for that. It was like a cosmic smoothie made of energy, particles, and heat. Scientists study this moment using giant machines called particle accelerators, and they try to rewind the universe to its earliest moments. The Big Bang wasn't just one moment. It was the start of a whole process that led to stars, planets, and eventually us. The cosmic soup and first atoms. For the first few minutes after the Big Bang, the universe was still super hot, too hot for atoms to stick together. Instead, it was filled with a glowing cloud of plasma, a mix of particles and light flying everywhere. We call this the cosmic soup, a thick, glowing fog that filled the entire universe. But as time went on, a few minutes, then thousands of years, the universe kept expanding and cooling down. It's kind of like taking a hot cup of soup out of the microwave. It starts boiling, then slowly gets cooler and easier to taste. Once things cooled enough, atoms finally formed, mostly hydrogen and helium, the two simplest elements. These were the universe's first ingredients. They floated around in space for a long time, forming giant clouds of gas. There were no stars yet, just darkness and gas quietly floating in every direction. But that gas wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. It was waiting for gravity to kick in. First stars and galaxies light up the sky. Now, something amazing started to happen. Those clouds of hydrogen and helium, gravity began pulling them together. Slowly, softly, they started to clump. And when enough gas gathered in one spot, boom, the pressure and heat became so high that the atoms started to fuse. That's when the first stars were born. These stars weren't small. They were huge, bright, and burned super hot, shining light into the darkness for the very first time. Little by little, more stars formed. Some grouped into galaxies, giant families of stars. These galaxies spread out across the universe, floating farther apart as space kept expanding. The universe was no longer dark. It was alive with light, heat, and movement. That's the moment the cosmos started to look like, well, a cosmos. Stars gave birth to new elements, created light, and began shaping everything we know today. From stars to planets to people. Now that stars were shining, something even cooler happened. Inside the stars, new elements were being made. Stars are like giant cooking pots, fusing hydrogen into helium and then into carbon, oxygen, and more. When really big stars ran out of fuel, they exploded in supernovas, spreading all those new elements across the galaxy. That stardust started forming new stars, and some of it clumped together into planets. One of those planets was special. It was just the right distance from its star. It had liquid water, a warm atmosphere, and something magical happened there. That planet was Earth. And over millions and millions of years, that stardust turned into life. Into fish, trees, dinosaurs, humans, and eventually you. So yes, you are literally made from star stuff. Every atom in your body was born in a star a long, long time ago. That's not just poetic, it's science. Star, we are the universe learning about itself. Is the universe still expanding? You might think the Big Bang was a one-time thing, like lighting a match and then it's done. But actually, the universe is still expanding. Right now, while you're reading this. Galaxies are moving away from each other. The space between them is getting bigger. It's like blowing up a balloon with dots on it. As the balloon gets bigger, the dots move farther apart. And here's the really weird part. The expansion is actually speeding up. Scientists discovered this using powerful telescopes and clever math. They think something called dark energy might be pushing everything apart faster and faster. So what happens next? Will the universe keep growing forever? Will it slow down or shrink back? We don't know for sure. But every day, scientists are learning more. They use tools like the James Webb Space Telescope to look deeper into space and farther back in time to better understand how it all began. And it all started with a tiny point, a burst of energy. A moment called the Big Bang.